Hi guys, so we are going to talk about JavaScript objects. I'm getting the notes from my GitHub, summarized notes, Kiboma 2021. So JavaScript object. So what we know in JavaScript, almost everything is an object. We start with the boolean value, number, strings. All these are objects, but you have to use the new keyword. We have dates, maths, formulas, regular expressions, arrays, functions. All these are objects. And what we know is object is always variables. So how do we create objects? We create object by using either of these methods. You can create a single object using an object literal. I will show you an example of this. You can create a single object with the keyword new. So you start with the new. I will also show you this. You can use object constructor. Then you can also use object.create. So we are going to start by using object literal. And I will give you some few examples on this. So an object literal, so you have to state the value, you have to state the object name and the value. So for this, for example, when you are using object literal, you have to say, you have to give a variable that, for example, a person. Then this person has a first name, has a last name, age, and eye color, and you are assigning values to these attributes for this person. Let me show you in form of a script. For example, here we have, when you are constructing using object literal, for example, we have to give it for example the person. We have a constant for the person, the first name, we have the second name, age, and city, which is Ben, the second name, then the age and the city. So this is what we call object literal. So for example, now in case I want to insert this data here, of course I would have to say document get element by ID, and I say this ID. Then the inner HTML for this, what I'm saying, the inner HTML for this should be equal to, now you say what you want, but you always refer to person dot what dot, is it the first name, is it the second name, what you want to call. So you must always start with the object here, which is the person, and the attribute that you want to call. For example, you say my name is person here. Then now the attribute person, the age, probably person, and city. So this is what you are calling object literal, whereby you assign values to attributes. So when you call this this now will be inserted here. For example, if you call this page in a live server, so this is what we have. So the first statement is this one. Okay, this statement comes from here, because I'm getting the document get element by ID, and I insert the in HTML here in this space. Oops, that is clear. Creating object, we have said that everything in JavaScript, almost everything, is an object. We have different ways of creating an object, and that's what we are defining. One is using object literal, whereby this is an example of an object literal, whereby to create an object, you have to assign a value to an attribute, and this is what we have. The second method for for creating the second method for creating an object is using let me go back to the notes. The second method is using the keyword new, so you always have to start with the keyword new. Let me show you this example. For example, when you start with the keyword new, so you define, you come up with a constant whereby the object now is the country. Then you say new object, so you always have to start with the word new. This can be anything. You can say new, maybe country, new whatever you want, but you have to use the word new, then the name of the object. Then now after this, you always have to refer to the object.attribute. The object.attribute, then you assign the value to that. Hope that is clear. So for example, for us to insert this here, and now you have to say document get element by id, the id where you want to insert that in the HTML. The inner HTML, of course, is the object and the attribute name. Hope that's clear. So that's the second method of creating an object, whereby you have to use the word new. The third way is using object constructors. I guess we mentioned that, the using constructors. I guess we mentioned that here by using object constructors. So by using object constructors, we always need to, it's a function like thing, so we have to write a function for that. So for example, for the person object, you have to say the function, the name of the object, whichever you prefer. For example, this we have done with the person object. And now you give the attributes inside here, the attributes that you are going to use. So this one is a must. So function, the name of the object, and the attributes. Then now we must always start with the name this. So you say this first name, you give it a variable. So this is a variable, sorry. And now this which attribute, the first name, and this is the variable, which is always this one. So whatever you have to assign here is what you had in the variable names. So you have to start with this dot attribute, and the attributes are first name, surname, age, and town. Now to create an object to this person after the function, you can always say you have to probably a constant and maybe present one. Then you use the word new and the name of the object. So new person. And now you give the variables inside here. And if you want to create a second object, you say constant, the object name, the object name. Then you start with the new and the person object, this one. So to call this, then you have to say, as usual, you get the element by ID where you want to display that. Then now you start with this and the variable name. So when you start with this knows the values that it has. And now you call, what do you want? This dot probably an age, this dot town, and all that. Oops, that's clear. Oops, that is very clear. Then we can always assign, we can always add attributes to already an existing object. For example, here, in case we failed to add a category education, you can always add, probably by saying, by calling the name, the person object, then assign a value. So this attribute, now we have added education here. Yeah, then probably you can always add any attributes that's not here. Okay. To add a new method to an existing, probably for example you want to get the new name, the full name here, so you have to write a function inside this function. And to write a function inside that, you can also write a function using probably the existing object for this, maybe president.fullname, and now you call the function, then you return by concatenating the two names. Hope so that's clear. Having said that, adding method to a constructor. To add, probably this is what you have just explained. Probably you want to get the full name inside here. You have to call the function, and you are calling this dot full name. You initiate a function into brackets, curly brackets, and then you will return this. So when you are calling the full name, you have to say probably this is the, you have to call your object dot what you want. Okay, so that is it, and that refers to creating objects. And what we have said, almost everything in JavaScript is an object. Talk of dates, you talk of dates, you talk of formats, functions, you talk of strings and all that. So almost everything is an object, and there are different ways of creating an object. You can use object literal, which we have explained here, by just stating the object name, and then you have a attribute and you assign a value to it. You can use a new keyword, whereby you start by the new and the keyword that you want to use, then you can use object constructors. Okay, thanks for listening, and I hope you have learned something from this. Thanks a lot.